results make that. The regional is right here. I had the fastest time in my class, and I won my first couple motos. After a series of crashes and bad starts in my other motos, I was down to one class that I had a chance in qualifying. Going into that last race, I had a 1:16 knowing I had to win. I was in second place in that moto, and I got taken out by third. I tried to get up as soon as I can, but my mind was already kind of gone at that point, and I crashed again, and it was over at that point. I just remember I was on the track knowing that my whole dreams were crushed and everything, and I was just trying to start my bike, and I was just kicking and kicking and kicking, and I was just so angry. And then I remember a flagger came up to me, and he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Listen, I'm so proud of you. You rode so good, and just, you'll get it next year." And at the time, that didn't mean anything to me because my dreams were crushed. And little did I know that in a couple short weeks after that, my life would really change. So fast forward a couple weeks after that regional, I was starting to have excruciating pains in my back and my shoulder, and I could only find relief with constant movement or floating in a bathtub. It got to the point where painkillers just didn't have any effect on me anymore. I would have baths constantly throughout the day, and I would be moving non-stop. It got to the point where I would have to hold my hand in my pocket, and that would be the only source of relief. And all I would do is just walk around the house like this, and I would be like, oh, thank God I can just have some sort of relief. It was terrible. We went to several doctors, and some thought maybe it was tennis elbow from the vibrations of the bike. Some even thought that it was growth pains, and some just didn't give us answers. I even had a leukemia blood test that came back negative. Wow. We had so many questions but little answers. This cycle went on for many months, and then I saw my doctor, Stephanie Fong. She had a feeling that this is much bigger than I thought, and she rushed me to Texas Children's Hospital to run some more tests. The results came back, and from what the doctors could tell at the time, it was either a bone infection or most likely bone cancer. But they needed more data to tell. After more tests spanning many days, we finally got the call of our final diagnosis. And they told us it was neither bone cancer, neither a bone infection, but it was actually leukemia. To the surprise of the doctor, we were cheering at this news, because we knew that bone cancer would have been a lot harder and tougher journey than leukemia. I still knew it was going to be a long road ahead, but I don't think I was ever truly prepared for what I had in store in the next couple months. Now, I was introduced to the 9 hardest, most grueling, and challenging part of my life. And to put into perspective, the best way I can describe getting a chemo infusion is imagine you're a lemon and you squeeze it just enough to where there's just one drop of life in there, just to barely keep you alive. That's how it felt every time I got chemo injections for those first 9 months. And one time, heck, I even went in for an infusion, and just being in the presence of the infusion room, I got sick. I threw up. And my immune system was so low that day, I didn't even have to take chemo. I wasn't even eligible for it, and I still got sick just being in the presence of where I had chemo. But that day I did realize that the mind is powerful. I also realized that who you are surrounded by makes an impact on your success. Where are my parents? There's my mom. Where's my dad? There he is. He's crying over there. My parents have made just countless sacrifices along this journey. My mom really is the glue that kept all this together. She was there for me at every hospital visit, and she spent so many nights on the oh-so-comfortable pull-out couch at the hospital. And she just made sure I had company all throughout the nights, and she did everything. And then on my dad, on the other hand, I knew he was gonna cry with this part. But
we're all crying.
He's the emotional one in this fight. But it truly shows how much he loves me and cares for me. Even when Alta shut down, which is where my dad worked, he didn't have a job. We didn't have income, and that was in the midst of the intense treatment. We had no source of income, but my dad hung in there strong and never wavered from his composure. as I'm losing mine. Both of my parents have witnessed me having a stroke, methotrexate toxicity. For those that don't know, I had toxicity in my brain from too much methotrexate, which is kind of chemo, and my body would like almost be paralyzed at some points. And they also witnessed countless spinal taps, but they stayed strong through all of it. As my intense treatment was winding down, I could tell my body was really taking a toll at this point. I remember these last intense treatments feeling as if my body was going to shut down at any moment. Thankfully, I ended my intense treatment and I was off to maintenance. Now I only received chemo just once a month, and I was just starting the slightest bit to feel normal again. I felt good enough to start back at school and trying to mountain bike and get my body better and back on the bike. And man, did I miss riding my dirt bike. That was fantastic. It was definitely refreshing being around the people that I love, like y'all, all y'all here, and doing what I enjoy again. It felt good. So I had my goal set again to redeem myself and try to qualify for Loretta's. And as a lot of y'all know, that fell short again. I was one lap away from qualifying, but I ended up crashing and breaking my collarbone. It was tough at this point, but I was used to the fight, and I know what I needed to do to bounce back. My collarbone was healed up, and my maintenance phase was coming to a close, and I could just see the finish line on the horizon. But of course, like in Ethan fashion, I had one more hurdle to get over before I could ring the bell. In September of last year, I got COVID. I didn't think much of this at the time. After all I've been through, I thought it was just gonna be a cakewalk, how hard is this gonna be? But it turned out to be one of the hardest challenges of my entire treatment. With me having such a lowered immune system, it was hard for me to fight off the COVID. And due to the hematology protocols, I ended up in the emergency room 5 times in 2 weeks.
Didn't you get pneumonia?
No. But that would have been bad though. Glad I didn't. I was quarantined for 2 months and I ended up losing 25 pounds in that process. But like most fights, I overcame it and proceeded to have my last treatment of any kind on January 10th. So this time of celebration, I bring up all these trials and tribulations, but why? Because during all this, there's one constant that was never changing, and that was God's unwavering and compassionate love that He has for me. I could not imagine going through all of this and not having trust that there's eternal life just around the corner. There have been so many prayers and miracles answered, and the amazing way that God has worked my life through all of these low points. And throughout this journey, He has really made me appreciate all that God has given me, and I'll never take another day granted. Thank y'all.